Brother Steven, we are cooking. We are rolling. It is good to see you again, my friend. Man, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Look at the gun show.
Wearing the vet shirt today. Yeah, ready to roll.
I love it. I love it. We're back for another episode of One-on-One Profiles in Audacity, unleashing your humble alpha. There's a lot of things that people know, Steven. They're aware of the work that you've done. Spoke with Lane. The book is out there. Amazing things are happening. But really, I want to take a deep dive and talk a little bit about the things that people won't know. They see, obviously, the gun show, right? They see the success. They see the business acumen, all the things that are happening in Clubhouse. You know, you've surpassed numbers. You're over 10,000. Amazing collaborations are happening. So many things in the work. The Vetpreneur Tribe, the Warrior Council. There's a lot of good stuff that people would say, man, Steven, you're on top of the world right now. Things are happening and manifesting, etc. But rewind for a second. Let's talk a little bit about, just kind of walk us through, for those that don't know you, your service time and what you've done after, because your journey to here is definitely a very unorthodox one, to say the least.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, I grew up in Pennsylvania. That's the Kentucky part of Pennsylvania, so hillbilly, and mobile home and the whole, the typical American nightmare. And I left for the military to get away. So I like to say I joined because I was a patriot, but I actually joined to get away from where I was. Of course, there was a little bit of patriotism in there, but I went, and the reason I left, and this was clear to me then, but not conscious. And through writing the book, it really came out. So when I was in high school or growing up, I was sort of a dorky kid. So I was like sort of chubby, and I wasn't fat. I was just chubby and dorky and couldn't put one foot in front of the other, but I always tried. So I played sports and I was the worst. So I'm the guy where the coach says, last play of the game, last game of the season, do not rush the kicker because he's going to run around you. I rush the kicker. He runs around, makes a touchdown, and we lose. Right. So that was the story of my high school career, right? Sports career. And I was always, messed up for that. So I didn't really have any friends in high school. I had my brother, my twin brother, and I had two other friends, and they were sort of dorks like me. So I had to get out of there because I knew this, that as long as I stayed in a surroundings where people saw me in a certain way, that's how I was going to be. Like that, I would fit that mold. And that was the beginning of filling the space we're given, right? So in the book, we talk about filling the space that we're given, and they weren't giving me any space. They gave me a preconceived mold, and that's what I was filling. And so as a kid, you don't know how to deal with that, right? So you run away, and that's what I did. I joined the Army. And I had a mullet. It was 1986, so don't laugh. So I had the disco haircut going back, and then I had the long mullet in the back, sort of feathered, if you remember what that is. And I ended up going in the military, in the Army. And when I got to Fort Knox to boot camp, they put the razor on my head and started shaving my hair off, right? And I felt it. I felt all of that mold, the mold that they had me in, my past life, and all the things that I believed about myself that weren't true. It was all being shaved off. Wow. And it was like I literally came out of that barbershop Iron Man, at least in my mind. And then reality hit. I was not in shape. I couldn't run. I was vomiting while I was running. And we got to the obstacle course a couple weeks or months later, I don't remember. And we came against the wall. And the wall's, it's a 15-degree wall leaning at you with no rope. And everybody's like scrambling up there and getting over it. I'm like, why? I couldn't do it. Like I couldn't do it. And the drill sergeant threw me down. He's like, he just called me every name in the book. And I got so upset that I sort of exploded, jumped up, and I with one hand over the wall. Wow. And I landed on the other side. I was like, oh my God, that was me the whole time. That was you. What the hell?
That was in here.
I couldn't. Yeah. And from that point on, dude, I crushed it. Right. And okay, I was still slow. I wasn't the fastest guy and wasn't the strongest guy. It didn't need to be. I was just so proud of myself that I broke through, just the wall. Right. So, and I went on to do a pretty amazing career in the Army for what I did. I was only in for just about 7 years. And and I was stationed in Germany the entire time. So I did different posts in Germany. I did border patrol in East-West Germany. I served in Berlin Brigade, served in Southern Germany in Schweinfurt, and I was one of the highest decorated guys in my battalion down in Schweinfurt when I was getting out as an E5 as a sergeant. And these awards came from things that I always fell into.
Okay.
Right. So I always fell into these things, or they were presented to me, and people were like, how do you always get to do these cool things and you get all these awards for doing them? Like, how does that happen? I'm like, I'm always in the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't explain it. But what it turned out to be later is when we were writing the book, and you got to realize when we wrote the book, it was dissecting our entire lives and then figuring out what point in our life did we experience something that we then repeated to make wins. So that's where HIT comes from: honesty, integrity, transparency, investing in relational capital, creating space, life enterprise. That's where all that comes from. It wasn't like we made up these acronyms just for the heck of it. They literally came from repeated wins that we had in life and why they happened. And so that's why the book is really taken off like a storm, because it's practical. Anyway, so I was in the Army, got out, a European out. So I stayed in Germany. When I got out, I walked off base. I was a civilian. I got into the cocktail bar and nightclub business, and I owned a few. And then at the same time, 3 years after that, I got into the executive world in the UK, worked for a British PLC, which means publicly listed company. It was in the stock market. They made me a director of Europe for operations and development. Out of the blue, I had no experience whatsoever. But the CEO said, don't think about it. Shut up and do it. That's what he told me.
Just go with it.
And I was like, bet. And that was the first time. And I didn't realize it until we wrote the book, that I realized that when someone sees something in you, it's there, whether you see it or not. So what do? You say, F it, I'm embracing it. If he sees it, then it's got to be there. So let's do this.
Yeah.
And man, I crushed it. I crushed it. I broke every record, revenue record, sales record, you name it. And then I took over a joint venture, went to America, to Chicago, opened up a location there, and came back. It was pretty cool. And then, anyway, long story short, I crashed and burned, wrote a book in German about my time in the Gulf War, but it was the internal battle I had in the Gulf War, not the external battle. And that became a bestseller within 2 weeks of launching, only in German language. No American publisher would touch it because it came out the day the war started in 2003, the one that you're wearing the hat for.
Yep.
And my book was pro-America, right? Anti-war. So it was like, look, man, we don't need to do this shit. I've been there. We don't need to see what happens. And of course, it wasn't published. So I was on a 1 year long book tour and got to really do some stuff in Germany. Anyway, I went back into the corporate world, did the same thing again. The whole time I'm self-employed, by the way. So I still had my cocktail bars. I'm still self-employed as a self-employed director, self-employed general manager, self-employed, and because I was going, when you're self-employed and the employer doesn't have to pay all of the deductibles and all of the national insurance and the health insurance, and I get my pay, the gross, I get net, and I decide how to pay the taxes. So that was much cheaper for me. Anyway, so I'm always trying to find a way.
Yeah.
And and I ended up getting back in the corporate world, rising up, this, that, and the other. I got divorced from the woman I was married to in Germany, and had 8 years of unabated doing what I wanted to do, if you know what I mean. So, and I had a blast. So I went back into the club scene, and it was crazy, but it all crashed in 2008. Everything, and I mean everything, to the point where I was homeless. And I had I've told this story before, but I'll tell it now too as well, because it fits into the story and why I did what I did. Is that I had a toxic relationship at the time, and she would just insult me and make me feel like garbage and would tell me you're garbage, right? So it was like one of those things where you're like, I'm a war veteran, I'm a tough dude, I'm 6'4", 250, and I got this girl making me feel like I want to kill myself.
Completely emasculating you.
Yeah. And you stick with them too, because what do we do? I have to win, right? I have to make this work. That's what we do. So you stick with this misery. Anyway, so we were driving down the road. She's cussing me out again for God knows what. I looked at her or whatever, and I stopped the car and said, "Get out. We're done. Get out. Just I can't take with this because I'm about ready to explode." And I'm literally crying, snot coming out of my nose. And I'm this big guy, right, driving this car
with the ugly cry.
Yeah, the ugly cry, exactly, like massive. Yeah. And I step on the gas, man, and I floor it, and I get up to like 100 miles an hour, and I'm in a 30 zone. And I'm talking, it wasn't even 100 meters. There was a police speed trap. So I got pulled out, and there's snot coming out. I'm crying, and I'm freaking out and stuff. And the cops, there's like 5 cops there, and they're just looking at me like, whoa, what's going on? And I'm trying to explain, and I'm crying and stuff, like whatever. And she comes walking up, right? Because it was only 100 meters away. She's like, arrest him. He's a murderer. He's war criminals. And I was like, what the that's the kind of shit she would come up with all the time. And so I'm standing there, and beside me was this little police officer, lady, trainee or whatever. And I looked down at her, and I saw her gun. And while this is all going on, and I look at her, and I reach down and unsnap her holster and pull her gun, right? And I'm gonna shoot myself. And my girlfriend at the time was like, do it, do it, do it. So they tackled her. This girl, without skipping a beat, so I'm pulling it up like this, and she takes my hand and just pushes it right back down in the holster, pushes my hand away and snaps it closed, and turns to me like pivots, like, whoosh, right? And says, you don't want to do this. I know you. And that right there was probably the most powerful thing in the world to stop me from doing anything else stupid, because I was so shocked that there's a person that I never met that turned to me and said they know me. And it was a small person, so it wasn't like brute force. In America, I'd have been shot already.
Right, right. She didn't come at you with like no trying to wrestle you. Literally,
nor did the other cops.
It was just the way she just redirected your energy and everything there. Just almost took you completely by surprise. Because in your mind, I'm sure you're thinking, I'm going to go out here fighting. So if I'm going to take this, right, the natural reaction, the thought process being, she's going to fight it, you're going to fight, pull back, and it goes, and she literally just goes.
Yeah, and just that touch to my hand sent like a wave through my body, like just relax. My whole mind cleared up like that, right? And I realized what was going on. They put me in the paddy wagon, took all my information, took my license, took my car because I was speeding so fast, and they sent me to go home. But I didn't have a home because I was homeless. I had an apartment, but it was being rented out to a guy that wanted to rent it out because I had no money to pay the rent. So I was renting it out to him for $100 more than I was paying. So I had $100. And so I went to that place and I said, dude, can I have some time, man? He's like, sure, I'll go to the store. So I go into the closet where my stuff was. I pulled out my uniform, my military uniform, hung it on the door, took a picture of myself in greens, put it underneath there, took out a K-bar, actually that K-bar right there, hanging on that plaque right there. Took it out, stuck it to my neck, and I was ready to go. And I just went. And as soon as I did that, knock on the door. And I was like, God, I can't even kill myself. Like, are you kidding me?
Is this in the same day? How long between the hand?
Half an hour, 30 minutes.
So you have 2 instances where you try, hand goes down. You get the K-bar, knock on the door.
Yeah. And I go to the door. I'm like, what? And I have a knife in my hand, right? And it was that girl, that police officer. Yeah. She found my address and came. Yeah. And I was like, and she said, can I come in?
What are the odds that in literally a 30-minute span, less than an hour, the same person deflects 2 attempts that literally could have been for anyone the last time anyone would have ever heard of Steven?
Exactly. Wow, I never heard it put like that before. Wow. And so I said, sure. And she came in, and again, she put her hand on mine and put the knife down. Right. And it was crazy.
So she walked in and saw you with the K-bar.
Yeah, because I opened the door like this, and I had the K-bar in its hand. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, not even realizing what I was doing. She didn't get shocked.
She just kind of same energy came right in there. Same movement again.
Yeah.
You don't want to do this. I know you.
Yeah. Well, then she said, "Can I come in?" I said, "Yeah." And she led me by my hand into my own living room, which I was like,
"How do you even know where you're at?"
And well, she was a police officer. They had my license and everything. They took it, so And she said, "Look, I know you." And I said, "Yeah, you said that. How?" She goes, I was at one of your readings. So I did a year book tour. She was at one of those readings. Yeah. And she said, "I know you. The way you read and the way you talked, I know who you are. You're an amazing man. You're going to change the world. You do not want to do this."
Wow.
And then we talked a little bit, and then she got up and she, did the German bussy bussy, like, and then off she went. And I stood there like, like, why can't my girlfriend love me like that girl loves me and doesn't even know me? You know what I mean? It was like that. It was that kind of a moment. And I was crushed. I was like crushed. And And I knew I was in trouble because I was alone. And so I called my buddy in Austria and I said, look, man, Michael, if you don't come and get me, I'm not going to be here tomorrow. I just don't have this. I don't have the strength of the will anymore. And he literally said, okay, hang tight. And he said, check your email in about an hour. And I did. And there was a plane ticket in there for that night, for the next day, I don't remember, to fly to Austria. So I flew to Austria. He picked me up and drives me to a monastery, Benedictine monastery, and drops me off. And I go inside. He said, just go inside. They know you're coming. I go, oh, shit.
Okay.
So go inside. And I will go inside, and all the guys wearing black robes with the, all that kind of stuff. I'm like, hi, I'm Steven. I'm here to check in or whatever I'm doing, right? Do I get a uniform or what do I wear?
How does this work? Which way do I go?
Yeah. And they said, no, come on, we'll show you your room. And they showed me my room. Amazing. It was filled with 16th and 17th century furniture. And it was amazing. Because it's
a complete night and day from what you're used to. You're walking like in a time warp to a whole nother dimension.
Yeah, because this is the longest continuously open monastery in all of Europe. It's been open for God knows how many years, over 100 years for sure. And so I go in this room and I feel like the energy is it's just wow, Anyway, so I go, okay, all right, I unpacked and I go down like looking for a monk. Excuse me, can I talk to you? Yeah, sure. And he's like, what can I help you with? And I said, okay, I just showed up. I'm here. And my buddy sent me here. I'm here to get answers, right? To clear my head and just get answers. So can we talk? He's like, sure. And I said, so this is how I feel. This is what's happening. I'm telling all this stuff. And he's like, we don't have answers for you. The answers come from within. They come from God. So best is not to think and to talk. Go out in the forest, go into the garden, and just walk around and meditate and relax. And I'm like, I'm at 180, right? I just came out of this. I'm like, what is he talking about? I'm going to go nuts here. So what I decided to do was every time I was tired, I'm going to sleep. I just said, I'm going to sleep. So I took literally like 6 naps a day. I just slept and got up, slept and got up, slept and got up, slept and got up. You had 3 squares a day and there was nothing to do. Nothing. Except walk around. There was a huge Roman garden they had there with 6 or 8 or 10 different spaces where you could meditate, because they're monks who meditate. They're Benedictine Christian monks, but they meditate and they chant. So at 5:45 in the morning, every morning, there's a chapel that was built in year 400 or 500. Yeah. Wow. It was built in the year 400 or 500. You go in there and there's like 20 monks at the front and they're chanting and praying at the same time. And because of the way the chapel's built, that vibration goes through your body. Wow. You're just like, oh my God. Oh my God. It's just filling you with everything. Holy Spirit, universal power, whatever you want to call it.
Right. Fill in the blank. And what year is this when all this is happening?
2008.
So just for context, so the internet is a thing, right? There is, connectivity. Social media is not as big as it is right now, but the point is there's a lot of stimulus of oversaturation of information. And here you are now in a building built in the 400s, right? Where everything is completely different. There is no internet. There is none of that stuff happening. It's literally a whole different stimulus, almost like a reset of your system.
Well, yeah, I had no phone with me, no laptop. I didn't tell anybody where I was except for Michael and my parents in America. Nobody knew I was where I was or
off the grid.
Off the grid, completely. And so I spent a long time there, and I ended up, coming to peace with myself. I would sit down and start meditating, close my eyes, open them up. It's like 12 hours later. It's like I didn't even realize it. It was like I was so at one. I had no wishes, no wants, no hates, no loves. It was just pure oneness. And I got to be so well with myself that the monks started coming to me and what I was doing to become such a difference in where I came to where I was. And they wanted to know, because I would sit in the church, everyone else is praying, and I'm like this, right? And they're like, what are you doing? Like, we see like this halo around you, like a light around you. I said, that's the energy. Like, what do you mean? That's the energy of the universe, God. Jesus, whoever it is,
fill in the blank, call it what you want, but there's something happening here.
Yeah. And so they were literally taken aback because they saw it. It wasn't something I was saying; it was something they saw, and I just explained it to them.
And how long were you there at this point, where now you're kind of in tune with what's happening and you're kind of reset? How much time has passed now?
About 4 months, 3 months, 4 months, something like that.
So, and the reason I'm pulling it out because it's a pattern of success that's happening, right? You lead in service. Stephen, why are you on the right place and right time? Opportunity is meeting potential and preparation. Fast
Yeah.
forward to business, same thing. Life happens, redirect. In 4 months, you have people who live in this space saying something's different here. And again,
No.
that's not just something coincidental. It's literally
No.
you are embracing and being in that moment. And again, in 4 months, many folks will still be lost. And for someone who's lived in a monastery all that time to say, hey, how are you achieving this? Because for them, I'm sure they're saying, that's not supposed to happen. I've been here for how many
Yeah.
years, and I'm still trying to figure out this one from that one, and you're over here kind of walking, on water right now, but really just in tune with what's happening, right? I'm sure that was a
Well,
lot of the questions as well.
exactly what it was, because most of the monks, over 50% of them, out of 80 monks, didn't become a monk until they were over 40. So they were all businessmen and fathers or whatever. They all had jobs, normal people. So they're we've been here. I've been here. I came here when I was 40. I'm 60 now. How, like they're just like,
And,
how did
and,
you,
and you've been here for how long now?
how many minutes? Yeah, exactly. But what that was creating space. I was creating space the whole time. Didn't know it, you know. And now we can put a name to it. I was absorbing. I was meeting them where they were. I was letting go. I was absorbing. I was looking at life as all connected. Everything was connected, and it was like I knew that how I treated people is how I was treated. And I knew that how I treated the earth is how I was treated. And I knew that I had the dialogue with myself had to be good. I knew that thoughts that we had about the future are basically, usually based on the past, and that dictates our future. So either I dictate it purposely or I don't even think about it. And these are all the things that were happening there on its own.
Yes.
A bunch of other stuff happened. I won't get into it, but went to the mountains after that and lived by myself with just water. And then people started coming up the mountain because some crazy Americans living up there by himself in this little hut. And they started bringing me food, which I didn't want. I just wanted the water. And there was a brook there, or a creek, or crick, whatever you call it. And it was amazing. Anyway, so I went back to Berlin, Germany, and I didn't want to go back into the world of business, so I just sort of hung out for a little bit. And I was still homeless, basically. But I'm going to tell you, this is the biggest lesson I learned from all of that. I got back to Berlin, ran into some friends and stuff. Hey, Steve, what's going on, man? And I'm looking at them, hey, man. Not one question, not, well, where you been, or what's going on, or nothing. And I said, you guys realize I've been gone? How long? And I came back. I didn't pay my bills the whole time. Nothing changed. Nothing. Like nobody noticed I was gone. The debt collectors, they sent letters, but they didn't give a shit. I called them and said, look, I was sick for a long time, and I'll pay you $5 a month until I get a job. And they're like, okay. It was everything was effortless. And I was like, wow, that's humility, right? That's
every piece of thought that most would have of like, oh my goodness, I'm going to be behind on all these things, all the preconceived notions of what should happen. By pulling yourself out, you literally almost kind of stepped out of the fabric of reality, lived a whole different time, did introspective work. We'll call that 4 month here, that period there, but that journey, when you kind of step back into the regular mainstream world, you look around and you're like, holy cow, it's almost like Inception, right? Like you stepped out for like 5 minutes and it's like, I've been gone for like years and nothing's changed here. And everything that I would have feared or thought, none of it really has manifested itself.
Exactly. But the thing is, I didn't fear or think anything about it. That's why, right? So I didn't dictate anything. Because our thoughts will dictate. Our mind does not know the difference between reality and what we think. It doesn't. It's been scientifically proven over and over and over with experiments on piano players just thinking about playing the piano, visualizing it, and others just playing the piano, and they have the same exact skill set. Or the Vietnam veteran who was a prisoner of war for 7 years, played 3 rounds of golf in his head every single day, and when he got back, he was a better golfer than when he left.
Wow.
So the mind does not know. It doesn't know the difference. So we better watch out what we think. Because I always say, if you want something to be true, just keep thinking it is, negative or positive.
But that's
right?
but that goes to the point. So, and those that may have seen already, Lane and I talked about when we start getting into, and this kind of leads into the unleashing your humble alpha in the book, which really isn't the intention wasn't let's write a book, right? The first thing you said was this was a manifestation of your life and Lane's life and basically similarities that you were able to pick and say, wait a
Yep.
second, there's a pattern here, which is why I called out what happened in service, what happened in
Yep.
business, what happened when you began your journey to really find yourself. And those parallels are there. We can start looking at intention, manifestation,
Yep.
given power. Some would call it the law of attraction, some would call it divine intervention, purpose, calling, being pulled, fill in the blank. Nonetheless, the
Yep.
results are all very similar in ways. You went your way as far as looking at the monastery. Lane has gone his way in finding things. I've had my journey, but there's a commonality that the three of us have had conversations
Yep.
of, which is that same point of what your mind is able to accomplish versus what people think. Like as a man think if he
Yep.
is. All these different things that are cliche. So my question to you is, as what you saw as you began to give into it, did you find that beacon, that message, that call, that drive, that magnetism, did you find it to become stronger, to your point, the more you stopped thinking about it and kind of just gave into it and giving energy to the incorrect things versus like I'm going to do
Yep.
this now? Talk a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, I would say I let go, right? So anything that didn't serve me, I let go. And I mean everything, people, thoughts, cars, whatever, clothes, things. I let go of everything that didn't serve me. And it scares a lot of people in your space. A lot of your, I lost a lot of people that were my friends, right? Because I wasn't that cool guy with the club anymore and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah. And matter of fact, I spent, like I said, a year in Berlin, just sort of not even a year, half a year probably in Berlin, just figuring myself out what I wanted to do because I didn't want to go back to the corporate world. But what happened is the more you let go, the more things are in your face.
Yes.
You have more choices than ever, and I had choices then. And I mean, I didn't have a job, I was homeless, and I had choices, and I turned them down.
That
Like
goes
I could,
back to your service though, right? You for all intents and purposes were fast tracking awards of the yin yang. You could have done your 20. Again, it's a common theme of which I think it's a salient point and lesson. And you had options. You could have stood in service. You could have excelled. You could have done business and excelled. So options were never there. It's not like, well, Steven had to go find himself because it all crashed. Like, no, opportunities were there, but you went another way. And I think that's a good point to focus on because it shows the power of being able to your point, letting go and letting that journey, that path become clearer.
the only thing that stops anybody from doing what they really want to do is their own mind. And people are like, no, I need money. I have to pay the bills. You freaking you'll make the money there. When you let go, you will make the money. It will come to you. Money is not something you get to do. Money comes as a byproduct of what you do when you love what you do.
Yes.
Right? Or when you're passionate or your purpose. I swear to you, when I need money, when I have that thought that, oh man, I need some money, I immediately say, all right, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
Like, where am I off track? Right? Okay, I'm not doing my purpose. I'm not digging into my purpose here. What's my purpose? I dig in 2 or 3 days later, windfall. Every single time to this day, because it's always you're always adapting. Things change, the world changes. COVID comes, panic.
Yes.
Right, your world gets really small all of a sudden, and you're always adapting and adjusting and navigating. And so you're to be consciously aware of where you're at. Be consciously aware of where your mind at. And when your mind is telling you things that you don't like and you're in a bad mood, that's a warning sign, brother. Like, get out of your head, go back to whatever peace you have. Like, I can go back to the monastery like that. Right? I can go back to that peace like that.
For you, what does intention mean?
Intention is starting, right? It's the start of something, and it's me pouring everything that I have into that. The intention of, for instance, getting out of the monastery and doing what I wanted to do. My intention was I'm going to completely, and my intention is to completely repel anything that doesn't serve me. So when they offered me jobs and careers and that kind of stuff, it wasn't even well, let me think about it. No, it wasn't. It was just like, nope. I felt the resonance or not. And if I didn't feel the resonance, gone it was. And that was with people too. Like, hey, Steve, how's it going, man? Let's grab a beer or whatever. I'm like, no, it's cool, man. Like, it's just not there. Matter of fact, people got upset with me, real good friends, because I'd sit down with them and they would just suck my energy out. And I started to feel this. So I had to build sort of optical walls between us.
Yes.
Of like glass walls where they couldn't take my energy. I mean, and then they're like, "Are you okay? You're different," because they couldn't feel me just freely giving my energy away.
Right,
Just
which was the pattern that you've experienced many times in service and in businesses. Hey, what can I get from Steven? We know that many relationships are transactional, right? I want to talk to Steven because I want from Steven fill in the blank. Versus I'm here to serve, I'm here to give, and that's a whole different frequency. What does manifestation mean to you?
I think manifestation is a result of something. I don't think you can manifest. There's not like a manifest button, right? I think manifestation is a result of a few different things. One of them is letting go. One of them is focusing on the intention and not the out. Especially don't focus on the outcome. When I say that, people say, "Well, you got to set goals." Well, of course you do, but you set the goal, you set the targets, you set the benchmarks and the phase lines. I would say phase lines, targets, and benchmarks fall, or you can cross them, but goals don't. So you want to reach that goal. So what can you do in between? What are the targets? But how you're going to do it, that's where manifestation comes in. It doesn't matter how you do it. You just got to create that certainty. We talk about it in the book, about creating certainty through identity and purpose. And once you're certain of it, it doesn't even matter how it's going to happen because you know it will. Right. Yes. So you don't worry about that. So when you let go of that, oh my God, how am I going to do that? I got to get to $1 million. I'm going to get to $1 million. And then you got to also manifestation. They say make a vision board and all this kind of stuff, and it'll happen. You still got to work.
Yes.
You still got to put boots on the ground, one foot in front of the other, right? And I do vision videos, so I'm making one right now. So I'll do a PowerPoint presentation with all the things that I'm achieving now. I always say I'm achieving them now, but they're not here yet in the real world, but they're already here in my reality. And I'll make a video and I'll just watch it 2 or 3 times a day out of that PowerPoint presentation. And it's just like, oh yeah, okay. And then it happens. And honest to God, last week I pulled out my video from last year and I looked, 85% of the things are done.
Check.
Done. And I didn't even realize it when it happened. Why? Because it was already done.
Yes.
As soon as I made that video, it was already done in my mind. So I let go of it. And when it happened, it wasn't like, oh my God, it was normal. It was like,
no, the work is there. And it's funny because when I talked with Lane, one of the things that we focused on was just that thing, right? For example, the intention today is to have a conversation. Some are only focusing on what's the expectation of this. Yeah. And it's like, no. Okay. We're going to hold space. We're going to create something. What that becomes will be what it be versus trying to force. No. This has to be a product or outcome, which many focus and do.
Well, there's a spiritual way to say that's sometimes hard for people to understand. Lane is really going off into that spiritual realm, which is awesome because I went that way and I know that I turned out how I am because I went full in, right? I went like neck deep, right? And now I'm balanced, not balanced, integrated. It's more integrated into my life instead of just doing one thing.
Yes.
So the intention, we talk about creating space. Creating space is showing up wholly and fully for the person in front of you with no expectations, cookie cutter solutions, or preconceived notions. And that's because you can't control what happens. You can't control the outcome. You can only control your intention. And when you do that, whatever happens, happens. But the intention will guide that energy. So if my intention was to come here today and answer your questions as purposefully as possible, with as much love and care as I completely can, and not with my head.
Yes.
That was my intention. Add value, right? Just add value. And so that's what's happening right now.
Yes.
And whatever the outcome is or the words are, typically in these conversations before the book, it was really hard to articulate because we'd never articulated it before. And then when Lane would ask me, he'd be like, dude, how did you get to work for Mick Jagger or Olivia Newton-John or Andrea Bocelli, or how did you work with the Parliament? I'd be like, yeah, man, I just did it.
Yeah.
It's like, thanks for the instruction, man. How do I learn that? And I said,
how do I replicate this?
Yeah. So, and that's sort of where the book idea came from because he's like, we need to write this shit down.
Yeah, which is a great segue. So really unleashing your humble alpha. So we got a taste of Lane's journey, of your journey, which kind of brings us to this point. Because again, many people, like we said in the beginning, they'll see the gun show, they'll see the outward stuff, but there is a unique dichotomy between your spirituality, your worldview, your being in tune with who you are, but being able to operate in the business space that many would not think. Business for many is binary, right? It's either success, failure, money, no
Yeah,
money, revenue, no revenue. Like it's very binary to a degree of success or no success, versus
right.
moving towards the tune of your energy seems for many very woo-ish and woozy and all these other
Yeah,
things. But you've harnessed both sides, which brings the book of how do you define the intangible to a degree that makes the tangible things happen, right? The unspoken, the
yeah,
nebulous concepts that you were able to do, which really was a documenting of your journeys
yeah,
collectively
yeah.
together.
Yeah, it was a documentation, and it allowed us to build a foundation of articulation of what we went through, and then we put models to those. So something that we kept repeating, like creating space. First time I created space was I was 16 years old on the front of my 68 Chevelle SS 396 bored outdoor 402 with chrome exhaust pipes. That's how clear it is in my mind, right?
Yeah.
And I was sitting on the front seat with my girlfriend in my lap, and that was the first time I ever created space because
Mm,
she was having sex with everybody but me.
mm,
And and I was sitting there and going like, you know what? I don't care because I love her. I love to love. Like I love to love. So I'm just going to
mm-hmm.
create space. I'm going to love. No expectations. If she loves me back, I don't care. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
But I didn't realize that until Lane and I were in a car in America after the Washington D.C. event, and it just dawned on me as we drove by this girl's house, and I was talking to tell him what was happening, and then I said, wait a second, holy shit, that was the first time I created space.
Mm,
So that's what the book did. It really brought, and then I did it again there, and I created space with Mick Jagger, and I created space with Andrea Bocelli, and I created space with Olivia Newton-John. I'm like, oh my god, that's how I got what I wanted, but I didn't really
mm,
want it. That's how I got what my intention was.
yes.
That's how we talked a year long, and interviews and just dragging it out. It was tough. But what happened now is now we have a foundation from where we can operate. And now we're building upon that foundation even more depth and articulation. And what happens is people ask me all the time, like, how can you run? Like, I was running that corporation. I didn't tell you, but after the Monastery, a year later, I got a call from my old corporation, said, hey, we got a job for you. I'm like, hell no, I'm not going back to that world ever again. And they said, it's a 3-month gig. It's in Budapest. And something inside of me said, you got to go. So I'm like, Budapest, 3 months? Okay. So I said, I want triple the money as usual. And they said, okay. Because I didn't care if I got it or not. So I said, I want triple the money. They're like, okay,
Done.
bet, done. I can spend 4 days a week there and come back to Berlin, still do what I want to do. I walk in. So I go to Budapest on the first day, walk in the business, and the very first day, the first person I see is an amazing, beautifully amazing woman. And I said inside of me, that's my wife.
Mm,
That was 12 years ago. We're married and have 2 kids.
wow.
Yeah. And that only could happen. That could only happen because I love myself and accepted myself 100% with every knuckleheadedness that I've ever done. And I walked into that place as a neutral entity,
Mm,
and I attracted the person who felt the same.
mm,
Because in life, people can only love you, accept you to the degree that you love and accept yourself.
mm,
You see what I'm saying? People are not like people say, "Oh, I've met my life partner. They complete me. They're my soulmate. They make me happy." Well, if you with somebody that makes you happy, one of you are responsible for the other person's happiness. That's a bad thing.
yes.
You're with someone, you gotta be happy with yourself first, man. Your partner can make you happier,
Yes. Yes.
but that baseline happiness has to be from you, or they can't be happy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a mirror. It's like as above, so below. It's like a metronome.
Mm-hmm.
As far as it goes left, as far as it goes right. If you don't love yourself and accept yourself, how are they supposed to? You
Correct.
won't let them. You will not let them. As soon as they get past the amount of acceptance that you have, you're going to be like pushing them away. It's like
Yep.
subconsciously. Anyway, so learning all this stuff, I get back into business in Budapest, and I transformed this company into this like spiritually business-minded thing. And the CEO of this, we had 87 locations, found out about that, and he's like, "What are you doing? Like, what's going on here? Your team is amazing. Like, you guys, it's almost like you love each other." And I said, "We do." He's like, "What are you talking about? This is like a hardcore business guy." I said, "Just come to one of the meetings." So we had a meeting every day at 2:00 called the Huddle, and he sat there and he listened and he said, "Oh my God, can you do this? Can you go to every single location and show them how to do this?" I said I could, but it's not a thing that you calculate. It's a thing that you believe, right?
Right.
It's a belief. It's a belief system. It's a culture. And so I started working on that with them. And to this day, I mean, these people are my friends forever. That was 12 years ago, and they came to my wedding. They kind of come to our birthdays every year. And it's amazing. So yeah, embedding what we worked out in the book into business will change the paradigm of what people think leadership really is. And it's not theory. None of this is theory. It's all truth and happened.
Now, I wanted to kind of just show here and jump over the humblealphabook.com. One of the amazing things, there's background information. Folks can come here and read your information, follow you as well. But really, the best part of this page is this section right here,
Yeah.
because this is literally, I see men, I see women, I see young, I see older, I see different colors, different shades. Literally, because when someone thinks Humble Alpha, the connotation is men.
Yeah.
I see more women here on this
Yeah.
page than men.
Yeah. Well, the women are the largest a part of our leaders. The largest portion of our readers are women, because we actually niched it specifically for men because we sort of knew that the women would want it too, and
Yes.
we want both everyone to read it. So, and we asked them why. I
Mm,
asked a bunch of women, I said, why do you want to read Humble Alpha? And
mm.
there's many answers, but the two top answers are, I want a man like that. So either they're going to give it to their husband, or they want to look for a man like that, and
Yes.
they want to raise powerfully humble children. And I was like, wow, man, that's from our book. Are
Yeah.
you freaking kidding me? Like, and so that's the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
The Humble Alpha is all due to the Lane and mine's intention to decode our lives. So
And
that's a perfect example of what an intention can do when you don't know what
yes.
the outcome is.
And for those watching, humblealphabook.com is where you'll find this. Humblealpha.club. You'll be able to get more information as well, get access. What I love about the Humble Alpha book page is you have the ability to actually download an excerpt from it to kind of sample it and kind of get get a tease of the amazing things that are in here. For those that are avid on Amazon, you'll find it on Amazon as well. So it's here available as well. But I did also want
Audible.
to. Yeah, an Audible as well. I have it on
Yeah.
Audible, so it's literally as convenient as it gets.
Yeah.
Pivot.Steven-Kuhn, where you can find information on the things that you are doing. What are some things that folks can find here on this page as far as getting in contact with you?
Well, what I've been doing for 20, 25 years is I've been turning around businesses. So I've turned around hundreds of businesses. I've consulted now over 300 one-on-one veterans, just veterans, not including civilians, group coaching as well. And I take businesses and fix them in a real quick way and help them make money. My gigs last 4 months minimum. And in those 4 months, typically we're done. Like I'm done,
Mm.
and everybody's on the road again. So basically, we take people and turn them around. But what Lane and I do together, which is mixed with that, is that we take them through the Humble Alpha Leader Paradigm Upgrade, and that's a 3-month program. We go through the book with them one-on-one and extract the greatness out of them and help them extract the greatness out of them and bring them to that point in life where they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to crush this.
Yes.
And I help them then with Lane and our contacts to actually make that dream a reality. So
Yes.
whether it's building a business or they need a whole funnel or whatever it is, we'll put them in touch with the people that actually make that happen, and then we'll actually go through with them and make sure it happens.
Mm.
So it's I'm bringing my business world into it. He's bringing his spiritual world into it and his knowledge from the special forces, high performance mindset, and all that kind of force multiplication. And then I bring the business side into it, and we make it a success. And for anybody who wonders, I've worked with, like I said, hundreds of people, hundreds of companies, and hundreds of people, and to my knowledge, I have no unhappy clients.
Yes. So I want to go into a quick series of rapid questions, because again, this is a great introduction just into kind of Stephen, how the book got here. We could literally just spend a whole episode talking about the monastery. So it's literally like giving people like a taste of just the journey you've been on. Plant medicine. What is that?
Yes. Yeah. Plant medicine. Well, I started working with ayahuasca now, I think almost 17 years ago. And that was with a buddy of mine in Berlin, and he introduced it to me. We did a one-on-one session, and it was the most amazing thing I ever did. At the time, I didn't know it was amazing until a few days later. And I just got I got clarity. I got focus. I got the ability to let go of a lot of things that were bugging me or holding me down. The whole thing about plant medicine is it's all about the intention. Again,
Yes.
here we go, right? Like you don't just go show up and, like you do smoke a joint or something. You have to have an intention. You have to know what you're thinking about. You want to know what your intention is for life, for things, for relationships and everything. And I went in there, and always had an intention, but you got to be very careful. For instance, if you say, because I did this, I always want to have enough money. Like that's my intention. I always want to have enough money. Went in, came out, and I always had enough money, always, but never too much. If I needed 20K tomorrow, I'll get it, but that's
just
it.
enough. Yep.
It's like, son of a bitch.
Like I paid my rent, I paid the car, but I didn't factor the gas.
Exactly. And you're like, dang. So, and that took me a few years. I'm like, what the heck's going on? And then I realized, I told him, he's like, yeah, you asked for just enough. You got to be abundant, man.
Yes.
Because we feel, I can't ask for more. I got to know what it's for. Otherwise, I'm being gluttonous or whatever. He's like, no, just ask for it. And I did, and it worked. And matter of fact, this house I'm in, the first 100K I made online, my online business, it all came through intentions through ayahuasca.
Wow.
And San Pedro. And then ayahuasca is airy ether. It takes you up into the clouds and into the ether, into the spectrum. And a lot of people stay there because they only use ayahuasca. But we use, that's the mother, the feminine. We use San Pedro, the masculine. And that brings you back down on the ground and gives you the power and the groundedness to actually move forward and do the work you need to do to get those visions that you saw out there into reality.
Mm-hmm. So there's that balancing aspect in there.
Yeah. Yin and yang. It's masculine, feminine. Yeah.
Yes.
We have it all. So it's the yin and yang. And what you realize when you feel that is that all this stuff that we worry about in life, all these things that bother us, all these people that we think are talking crap about us, or all these people that's all their problems. Mm-hmm. It's the world's problem. It's not your problem. It doesn't have to be your problem. Unless it directly affects you and your well-being, it's just your thoughts driving you crazy. People forget that in our life, typically, we're reacting to the thoughts that we have about what happens and not actually what's happening.
Right. We're living with memories of the past that are influencing our present, focusing on the future that hasn't even happened, when really what is now, which is a whole, a trippy mindset of looking at the world. Yeah. Stephen, what would you say to someone out there who's like, Stephen, it's an amazing journey you've had. Like you've lived almost 4 lives, minimum. But I just can't let go of the past. You don't understand. My best days are behind me. I served. Yeah. I'm a veteran. I may have got hurt. I was supposed to be a lifer. I was supposed to fill in the blank, and it stopped for me, Stephen. You don't understand. I'm detached. I'm like you with a K-bar right now. I'm like you reaching for that holster. There's nothing on tomorrow. There's nothing moving forward. What would you say to that person after all that you've been through who may want to go reach for the K-bar back there or that holster?
I don't know if there's one answer for that, but I would say that you got to talk to somebody, and not a friend and not a family member, because they're going to be like, oh, it's going to be okay and you're fine, and oh, come on, man, just pull through. Bullshit. Talk to somebody who's going to give you straight answers. Talk to somebody who understands you but doesn't know you, so they can lift you up and set you straight. Because all we need as veterans is straight talk. Screw that mushy shit, right? Don't tell me I'm great and all this stuff and it'll get better, and look at everybody else and you're doing better than them, and who gives a shit, right? At that moment, you don't.
Yeah.
You don't. So I would say find a coach or a mentor, someone out there that may understand. I mean, look, there are just people that I talk to. I talked to an ex 2-star general. Turns out that I ended up helping him more than he helped me. But it doesn't matter. It's like I'm talking to them. It's a whole different perspective. You need to change the perspective. I don't like to say need, but you can change your perspective through talking to people who don't know you.
Yes.
And remember, if they don't know you and they see something in you, it's there.
Yes.
So embrace it. So if you sit with me, I'm going to see something in you, I promise you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you about it. It's your ability. That's your chance to grab it and run with it.
Yes.
I mean, I know it sounds kind of hokey, but practically, this is the deal. This is what's going to stop you from feeling like that. Get a freaking routine. Get some discipline. Write down what you want to do every single day. Turn it into habits. Habits turns into routines. And once you have a routine, you have something to do to get you somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Nothing's worse than not having a routine when you're depressed or feeling bad. Mm-hmm. Routines. That's why in rehabilitation centers, even whether it's for drugs or PTSD or whatever, they always give you a routine because they know it's going to keep you on track. So that's one of the things that I always focus on. Yeah.
I love that. Last question as we wrap up. Again, if you all enjoy this, we can come back and literally have a conversation on plant medicine and so many other things. Lane and Steve and I
Yeah.
will have another conversation. But give us one fun fact that people would not know about you. That again, they see you. You're tall, you're big, and again, from the outside, they'll see certain things.
Yeah.
What's something that people would be shocked to know that Steven has, likes, is, or does that it's just like I would have never pegged you for blank.
I don't know. I'm pretty vulnerable and open about everything. I tell every story and everything, but I think people wouldn't ever know that I'm a big softie.
Yeah.
Like I'm a very emotional guy, like very emotional. Like I see my wife sometimes and I just have tears in my eyes because I have so much love for her. I see my kids, like even right now, I'm tearing up just talking about it.
Mm.
I'm a big softie, man. you know, yeah, totally.
No, and I think it's just good to be able to see that because you can be that and still, again, back to the humble alpha. You have the ability to have that balance
Yeah.
there between those two polar opposites, which is attainable. But Stephen, I appreciate your time. There's so many more conversations to have, but I love the
Yeah.
fact that this sets the stage for future conversations for folks to know that unleashing your humble alpha, really, it's more than a book. It's literally a documentation and a tactical way of seeing strategic, nebulous concepts in real life with real application through the life of you and Lane, being able to share that with the world that now has catapulted into a movement that we're so glad and happy to see happening. So this journey is just literally ramping up and beginning to get more and more powerful and intentional moving forward.
Indeed. Love it, brother. Thank you so much, man.
I appreciate you, my brother. We'll talk again
All right.
one on one profiles and Audacity with Steven. I appreciate you guys, and we'll be back.